Welcome, everybody. Let's call the TGS&A meeting of March 5, 2026 to order. This is a regular meeting. So welcome. Thank you for coming. The first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from the prior special meeting of TGS&A held on February 12, 2026. That may have been a regular meeting, actually. Does anyone have any comments or suggestions or modifications to the minutes as submitted? No. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Okay, when that was Linda. We don't have a clerk tonight, so I'm going to be clerk. Linda moved, and Joe and Shelley second the minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, unanimous. Thank you. The next order of business on the agenda is to review and discuss and vote, maybe, on the proposed resolution of the representative town meeting of the town of Darien approving the adoption of an ordinance for the abatement of illicit sump pump discharge into public sewers and accompanying the resolution and the accompanying proposed ordinance. So let me open the discussion by saying we really have two questions before us tonight on the sump pump ordinance. The first is the advisability of the ordinance itself. Do we think this is a good idea? Is it something the town should adopt? And then the second question, which is really a separate question, is if the RTM proceeds anyway, what are our proposed edits or provisions or suggestions to the ordinance to make it work? So I'd like to open the floor on the first question, whether we think the ordinance should proceed in and of itself, and then we'll proceed to the second one as to how to edit the proposed ordinance that's been put before us. Anyone have any thoughts on whether we should proceed with the ordinance or the RTM should adopt the ordinance?
Well, we should look into it. It's an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the effect of us not going forward?
Well, we would report to the RTM that the TGS&A committee doesn't believe the ordinance is appropriate and state the reasons why. But if the RTM is going to approve the ordinance anyway, this is our proposed provisions or amendments to it. And since the Rules Committee hasn't met, the Rules doesn't meet until Monday night, so we can present hopefully our amendments or changes to the ordinance, which I've circulated to all of you, and I have a couple other nits I think we should talk about. And hopefully that'll be the ordinance that'll be proposed to the other committees when they get assigned in the next week, and then the ordinance will be put before the RTM at the March 16th meeting.
The only question I really had after leaving last time is I wasn't really convinced that they had any protocol for enforcing it. It seemed to be so lackadaisical as far as, sometimes they give a fine, sometimes they don't give a fine. We couldn't do anything through the building inspector, to require it when they go to the site. I mean, there would seem to be so many ways you could actually make it work that it seems like you're putting together an ordinance with no intention on the other end to actually seriously enforce it. So if I hear that you don't have to pay, and it's like, oh, don't worry, I didn't have to do anything. Why have it, I guess, is the question. I mean, I guess I'd be more of a proponent for figuring out how do they really intend to enforce it.
Well,
I mean, we don't want to be so strict that, you're upsetting the community, but he literally was saying they don't ever fine anybody, so.
Right. Well, that's why, when I looked at the ordinance and saw that we were delegating our authority to the Sewer Commission to impose fines, which isn't, one of the few powers that's exclusively reserved to the RTM, I thought, well, we should have a reservation so that, or a limitation so that if they do something that goes off the rails, that if they do start enforcing these things in a way that gets the town people upset, the RTM can step in and review and amend or repeal the ordinance. Because unlike the Sewer Commission's non-elected and we are elected, so that makes us a little more responsive to the town citizenry than the Sewer Commission is.
Yeah.
They're both. They're volunteers and they are appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So, they're responsible to the Board of Selectmen, but they have their own, independent mandate by state statute. Hello, Bobby Burney from Town Council is joining us. Welcome.
Did it become clear how they would help with those people that needed assistance to, let's say they have, it's very costly for someone and for them to fix it. where were the parameters? I remember that was brought up as a point that you wanted more clarification on that. Did they do that yet, or?
Bobby might be able to respond to that more, whether there's some ability to, provide assistance to,
Or how that's going to be done. That was
Yes.
one point. And then the other question I had was, what happens so when all of these sump pumps that are there, the 5,000 or so, then start getting redirected? How will that, what happens if we see a change in how water is flowing then? And who's responsible for that? Or do you take it like day by day on that?
Okay. So let me just back up for a second because
Yeah,
trying to clear my glasses off from the rain.
So just to
Yeah.
These were just questions, not
Yes.
even, I needed an answer, but they were
Yes.
just questions I had.
Just to bring you up to speed and set the table for you, Bobby, what I've presented to the committee is that we really have two questions before us. One is the advisability of the ordinance in and of itself, based on the reasons that Ed Gentile explained to us and, why the sewer commission wants to do this. And then the second question is, really, what do we think of the ordinance, the language itself? That we can have two positions. We can either approve or not approve of recommending the RTM approve the ordinance. And then if they do, this is the language that we think they should adopt.
Right.
So right now, we're on the advisability of the ordinance, and, we just got asked the questions here.
Yes, okay. And I believe the first question related to financial assistance, potentially for residents who need disconnections. We do have language here, and I don't have my notes in front of me. I apologize, it just came from something else, so I'll try to go off my recollection. But we do have a section in there, I believe it's section 11, but within the regulations that now has a provision that deals with the finances. So money going into the sewer operating fund, and then a second sentence after that within that section specifying that financial assistance may be provided to residents in order to comply with the program. In connection with that, I know that the Sewer Commission's next step after adopting these revised regulations is to review a proposed grant policy to basically outline what residents would qualify for assistance, what the factors would be that they take into consideration. But I think the oxygen has been really sucked up at this point in getting the actual program off the ground. That is the next step, though. So that is something they're going to be working on moving forward.
Okay. And then the second question was, I'm sorry, John, I can't think of it.
What happens like when water's starting to be redirected and you start to see, things maybe flood a neighbor or so forth? Who's responsible for that?
Very fair question. Well, I think to back up from the first place, if you currently have a sump pump connection discharging into the sanitary sewer system, you're already not allowed to do that. So we're rectifying a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place on paper, still there though, but then you get into the issue of real world harm, what actually happens when this water goes out. I am certainly not a sewage expert myself, so to that extent I couldn't say. I do know that really the point of gathering this information, which again, primary purpose right now is information gathering. Who has connections? Where are they? Who needs to be disconnected? What does DPW have to do to oversee those disconnections? I do think it's going to be a case-by-case situation where you got to figure out if certain people have discharges. If the reason they were originally hooking up to the sanitary sewer system was because a discharge somewhere else would cause harm to their property or to their neighbor's property, I think that is a prime example of why we've put in the concept of an authorized discharge within the revised regulations, which is that if you disclose you have a sump pump discharge going into the sanitary sewer system, if you disclose in your compliance statement that exists and you're being honest, you get a period of safe harbor where DPW says, okay, there clearly could be some harm or public health risk involved if you just immediately disconnect. So we're not going to tell you to immediately disconnect. We're going to work with you. We're going to try and create a plan to redirect that water to where it should properly go to help with any property harm, anything else that could happen. So that is going to be a case-by-case analysis. And I think until they gather this information and fully understand where all these discharges are coming from and why people were doing it in the first place, but you can't know really until people start talking to them, it's hard to have a blanket solution to that,
I mean, as far as like, from what I've gathered, listening to the head's explanation of where it comes, identify the likely culprits are sort of low-lying houses, wetland areas, and that begs the question, well then, you disconnect from sewer where, I guess, or it pumps it out somewhere else, you're just putting it in the yard and then put it back to your house, and you just have a sump pump going on and on and on. That could be like really costly.
Or downhill to your neighbors or whatever,
Well,
yeah.
I'm less concerned, if you're up high, yes, there's the runoff issue, but
Yeah.
there you putting some sort of dry well or gravel pit.
Yeah,
and it goes down,
correct.
it doesn't go downhill, it goes in the ground. But if you're like so low on the water table, and you're in one of these like Stony Brook neighborhoods, which like
Yeah.
exposing the water, you're pumping water out of your house, with no one who's going to sewer is gone, and ends up in the stream, which then overflows or maybe
Yeah.
goes downstream or something else. I think it's really, really complex issue.
Right.
I'm just thinking also the additional cost and who's responsible, because then more water is maybe going in the storm drains, so that, they already said that they're gonna expand the storm drain
That
system.
was fine. Like, that was one of my first concerns, was like, what's the problem? The water, the storm drain, but they're too close to the system.
Right.
I mean, collateral issues are going to fix that.
Right. Well, I mean, it's clear that there may be issues once we redirect the water out of the sanitary sewer onto, streets or yards and eventually the stormwater drainage system. But, we, on the other hand, the town is incurring millions of dollars a year to treat, clean water. And that's being borne by the entire town for a few users. So, I guess my thought is, why wouldn't
They
we
said
want...
5,000, right?
Well, but not 5,000 people are illicitly discharging into the sanitary sewer system. We have no idea what that number really is. But all of us sewer users are basically supporting them. But I mean, I thought that was one of the reasons that I proposed this limitation on the delegation of authority. If it turns out to be a real problem, that the taking the water out of the sanitary sewer and into the streets, the yards, the stormwater system, creates havoc and chaos, then the RTM has the ability to step in and say, wait a minute, we need to rethink this. So that's kind of the saving grace, because we clearly have a problem now. We're looking at maybe a potential problem when this problem's solved, but hopefully there'll be the ability to resolve that or deal with it in a way that doesn't create another townwide problem of the scope of the current problem that we have. So that's why I'm kind of in favor of this. I think this really does address a real issue that this town is facing. And we're looking at property tax increases of 5% a year for the foreseeable future, according to Jack Davis recently. So why are we paying millions of dollars out of our sewer costs, which are also a tax on sewer users, when it's really not necessary?
But if there's added expense by, including other like infrastructure items like the storm drain and addressing also the staff that's going to be needed to actually address these concerns. How is that, like, have they thought about that, or have they factored that into a budget of some sort? Or is it more of just like, we'll take it day by day and see how things develop? Is that kind of how I'm understanding it?
I'll let my friend, Mr. Burney, respond to that one.
Okay. So I can't say if they have a budget prepared for all of those things. Maybe they do. I don't know. I think, when we back up again, it's important to remember that from the starting position we're in right now, there is already a legal wrong, so to say, in that you're already prohibited from doing what is, the underlying issue here, pumping into the sanitary sewer system. That's under both the ordinance, under the current regulations, Article 11, and under the state code, state building and plumbing code. So you already can't do that. So we're already trying to rectify something you're not supposed to be doing in the first place. So leaving it at the status quo, really doesn't seem like a long-term solution for that reason alone. And then, of course, the costs involved with it too. I think also important to remember that with this phase here, this phase one, so to say, I'll keep using the phrase information gathering. Right now, the primary purpose here, to send out these compliance statements, gather the information, see what the scope of the problem actually is. I don't think anybody, and I've had many conversations with the sewer commission members and with Ed and Darren at DPW, I don't think anybody is expecting to go in, shovel the ground day one and start, doing massive renovation work on all this. I think right now it's figuring out how big is the problem right now? How many users is this who have these connections right now? What would it be like if we start disconnecting, and what problems would that cause? I think those are all things that they need to figure out, and the only way to do that by getting these statements and getting that knowledge.
So I'd just like to say, I have
all of these concerns and was determined to, I can't vote for this because we just have no idea. You don't know what you don't know, and they're willing to admit they don't know what they don't know. I'm still not happy with this at all, but I am willing to trust that, given that they've been thinking about this and trying to figure it out for 3 years in the public works, in the town public works office, that they feel they have to start somewhere. They know they have a problem to solve, and they know a lot more about it than we do. And I couldn't figure out how we could solve any of these problems that when you don't know, but very much so, I was very concerned, and still am, that the town might be, how much is it that we overpay?
500,000.
$500,000.
Oh, I thought it was 1.7 million. I thought it was like way
500,000, I thought.
way more. Well,
No, I
whatever
thought it was
amount.
over $1 million a year.
Yeah, I thought it
It's
was,
more than $1 million. I think it's 1.7 or 1.3 or something. It's over
Oh,
$1
that's
million.
total.
For the overpay.
I think that was total, wasn't that overpaid?
No, we pay them, our annual bill is
Yeah.
closer to 5 million or 4 million or something, but 1.7 or 1.5, let's say, of
Yes.
that is overpay for clean water going into.
yes, yes.
They
My
think,
my
they
recollection is in the millions, yes, yes.
Right. So compared to that number, my concern is that they might force somebody to that property owner who is illegally pumping water is suddenly forced, but they are given no responsibility for the upshot of that. There's no responsibility for their downstream, like for the havoc they might cause on someone else's property.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Exactly. And that can be a lot more than 1.7 million a year.
over-
So
over
I'm just
the-
wondering, then it occurred to me that I was hearing that no other coastal towns have this kind of ordinance.
We are, yes.
And then it came to me, it's like, I think I know why. I think maybe nature, it's like everybody maybe just has to deal with their own properties as they are, where they lie. You bought it, and whatever whatever the consequences of that are. As
Well, that's why
opposed
the
to,
question was like about new builds, maybe.
That's right.
Maybe for new builds or for renovations to address it from that level.
the
But
long-term solution, I think, is more ideal.
you brought
And I just
Yeah.
can't believe that they're not going to be having the same conversation when everybody's in this room.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be thinking the same thing. It's like, well, what happens to the downstream neighbor
Yeah.
and the one before, they're going to blame the town of Darien, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, do you think there is a plan, though, also, like, is the concern to identify who's wrong right now? And
yeah.
have them correct it or disconnect? I mean, does it stop at the disconnect, or is there seriously a plan for them to work with the people to say what you're going to do? Like, what
No,
if
there is
what if I
not,
just
and
move
there's
my
the
hose from
concern.
here to here,
We're going blind.
and I've complied with the ordinance or whatever, but then nobody cares about it?
So I would put it in this sense. I've worked with DPW for for the 10 years I've been doing town council stuff behind Wayne's back. You probably see me in the shadows. And they are, at the end of the day, if that water, if somebody just disconnects and that water's going out into the street and causing problems, that problem's going to end up right back at DPW's desk anyway. It's not like it just gets off. It's not their problem anymore. It still ends up right back at them. So I think they have every incentive in the world to make sure there's a long-term solution. And I can say that from meeting with the Sewer Commission members and DPW about this for the past year, very serious concern about what do you do with that. Hard to say. Is this 100 people? Is this 1,000 residents? Until you know, it's sort of hard to. And then again, same thing because of geographic location. If somebody's at the bottom of a hill as opposed to a top of a hill, what are the differences in ways they might attack that? I think right now, like I said, getting that information, figuring out the scope of the problem is important. And I think, the way I put it is, and I said to the Sewer Commission too, the way we've restructured the regulations is, I think everybody knows what the stick is. The stick is the ability to fine you for not returning the information, or under Article 11, to fine you for having the illicit discharge in place right now. I think that that's the stick. The carrot really here has to be, if you're going to be honest and share that you have this illicit discharge, that you're given safe harbor, that DPW won't just come and start fining you. They're going to give you a plan, they're going to try and help you remediate, make it reasonable, and then you only get back in trouble again if you're just not listening to the plan, not trying to cooperate, not being responsive. I think the idea here is to rectify the problem long-term. In no way is this structured, and I was one that drafted it, so I would know, this is not structured to be a punitive or prohibitive type of regulation. It's meant to be a rectifying one.
Really, what are the assurances that Barrett's going to?
Well, I think from the get-go, and this is important to remember that, the stick here, in the context of at least the compliance statements, is very small. $250 is not a ton of money, so even if you're not returning your statements, it's not like you're going to suddenly find somebody at your front door saying we're going to foreclose on you. It's not a ton. So I think that the penalty for not returning your statement is low enough that it's not like this could be realistically abused in a very harmful way in how it is currently drafted. And I understand the concerns about could this change in the future, could those fines increase? Completely understand that. So I think that the stick here is relatively low. In terms of what are the assurances that this is all going to, that the carrot is going to be extended, I think in many ways that is a reliance on good government, that the public servants are doing the job they're supposed to do. I have full confidence in them that they will, but that's just my own personal opinion. All we can do is draft a set of regulations that provide the safe harbor and hope people cooperate and comply. I think DPW will do their best, as will the Sewer Commission, to make sure that there's a proper plan that fits individual situations. Because again, if you don't rectify this, this just becomes their problem again. It's all downstream in this sense, to the Sewer Commission and to DPW. So I think they're fully incentivized to make sure that the problem is rectified not long-term and not just dumped out somewhere else.
And again, we're reserving the right in this ordinance to review, any regulation that imposes a fine or, penalizes people, and if it is, ends up in practice being something different than it looks like on paper. Because often when you see a regulation, it looks, objectively reasonable before it's put into practice and the implementation occurs. And if the implementation is, occurs in a way that upsets a lot of the town, and obviously people with pitchforks and torches show up at our doorsteps, then the RTM, has the right here, based on the ordinance that is proposed before us tonight, to take action and revise or repeal any ordinance, or at least the fine portion of the ordinance that, is upsetting people. So.
The lack of detail in each of these categories that we're discussing, I just think, I don't know how easy it will be to sell. Each of these represents, its own concern of, but then what? And there are no answers. And so I decided that I could vote for this if there was at least a periodic review, and probably not even just the first year. I mean, this could cause big problems for, we don't know how many people. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And in the low-lying areas, maybe that's, maybe it's not a lot of properties affected. If one person says, okay, that's what never mind, I'll just go from here to there. And it's not my problem that my neighbor is now flooded and this, and whatever happens downhill. It could just, we just don't know. And it's kind of a crazy thing to consider. And I'm sure this is why they've waited 3 years to finally, try to, deal with that number, that overage, the overage charge.
And you made a good point. If you start having a bunch of people do that and it starts flooding other people, that's going to cost a lot more than what it's costing right now.
Yes, and I don't know that we'd even want to wait a year if it came to that. It's like, okay, fess up, because you've kind of given them, you've given them, haven't you, a free ride? I mean, boom, okay, here you go, here it is, and it's not my problem because this ordinance required them to do it with no complication. It's
Well,
just
but that's
boom.
why we have the language in the proposed limitation that the RTM can review and act on any ordinance or regulation at any time, regardless of when it becomes enforceable. The Sewer Commission has to give notice to the Rules Committee that they've made an amendment to the ordinance. They've given us the ordinance that's been enacted.
But if I were someone who was illegally discharging into the sewer system, I would be the first to step up and say, okay, you got me, and let it go, because it's no longer their problem.
Yeah.
It's no longer their problem. It's just, people see this coming, I just fear the consequences, and then it will be, whose whose fault is it?
Going to runoff concern, like the highest point in a runoff is probably in that ties into the ground somewhere. Like, aren't there already laws on like where that water can go?
Yes.
There's a handheld mic on the end of the table there.
Yeah.
If everyone on the end and on the other side.
Matt, maybe you should take
Oh.
that.
They talk, that makes it
Right, thank you.
Are there already like laws or rules
The
in
wise
place
man.
to direct or, regulating where that runoff water from your roof goes? Because I presume that's probably a lot more than sump pump or groundwater.
Mhm.
I don't know.
There are. I don't know them all off the top of my head, so I'll be honest there. I hear your concerns about second-order effects from all of this. I'm a big fan of the idea that I don't think anything can stay static forever. I think there are going to be second-order effects, and then that's going to require a review of the regulations and updates to them. I think the Sewer Commission takes the problem seriously, and I hear your concerns too about what if somebody just disconnects and says, let me put this out in my yard and somebody else will deal with it down the road. That could happen. In which case, town government, Sewer Commission, RTM has the right to come back, review these, update them as needed, make changes. I'm certainly not trying to represent to you that the set of regulations in the ordinance I'm providing to you, or that we provided to you, is, the final solution to all problems. Just step one.
And that's why I came back around to, these people, our sewer commission members live in this town, our public works commission, or I believe they live in this town. It's like, nobody wants to ruin our town as much as we don't want to ruin our town and have, and create massive problems. So it's like, I think we have to let them do what they have decided is the way they have to start. That's where I'm coming down on, because all these same problems, like, no, there are no answers, and it's very disturbing, but they don't know, because it's really out of their hands. They don't have the authority to decide what the next neighbor and the next neighbor, they don't, this is not what they do. They're just trying to get everybody, but I like the 20-year solution of just the COs. This would be the backup. If nobody can go for this, if nobody could go for this, it's like then spend the next 20 years solving it, but with new buildings and renovations.
Well, I think you have another group of people as well. It's like if I got the letter in the mail and I was non-compliant, I think I might choose to just unplug my hose right away and not report it. So you solved the violation, but you have no idea that I did that. And frankly, that's what I do, because most people,
I'm sorry that
for
we've just
200 or 300, I
publicized
mean,
this,
a lot
like,
of
your
people may want to
instant
do that
Neighbor
too.
might notice it.
Yeah, you're
Rather
right.
than having the town come to inspect, I would just unplug and maybe fix it on my own, which would solve your problem, but you then still don't have any awareness of the other issues.
And, you could, where the compliance statement works is that you can just certify that you had one of you disconnected. So somebody could do that, But it's kind of the same problem end of the day. I don't think anybody could ever write a law or regulation that nobody could abuse, or try to skimp around or shortcut. That happens, which is why this is not meant to be punitive, not meant to just fine you into oblivion. It's meant to just gather information at this point. Those second-order effects will come, and I think to some extent, all we can do is trust that DPW, Sewer Commission, future RTMs will, see it and do what's needed, do what's right.
We need to find out what the problem is.
Yeah.
There's the thing.
We know
Yeah.
the big problem, we don't know the specifics. And
Yeah.
that's what we have to
No, that's
allow.
it's a circular, a circular issue that
Allow
either
the sewer
we're just going to
commission to do their
overpay.
job.
Yeah.
They can't do their job if they don't have the information. They can't get the information. They just know that all this water goes to waste. And as far as, when eventually, there's going to have to be some project done to get rid of all this water, once they find out where it's going. And they can, it's not all gravity. The answer isn't all gravity. They will put storm pumps in, and they'll pump the water so it gets out of these problem areas.
And nobody
But it-
wants,
but it-
and we don't want our own water treatment plant in Darien. Where would that Where would that be located? No, we don't want
Yeah.
it, so, I'm just saying that maybe we need to also consider how big a price is that to pay just to.
So then that's why, to your point, what you just said, is it better to stay with the system you got? I don't know. That's,
I don't-
apart from the legality,
And that's
that's
why,
clearly
and that's where we get
the
back
driving
to,
point
do
here
these
is
guys
the
know
legality.
something that we don't? And I'm sure they do. So let's maybe see how it goes, and if it turns, but let's not do it townwide. Can we at least say, let's not just like go nuts and all of Darien is, everybody in Darien's gonna get this notice? 5,000 households are gonna get this notice one day? Yes, exactly, we said this. Start with,
Address those first. Well, have
Can
they
they
been
do that?
proactive at all in letting people, like, we have an educated community. Has anybody, I get a bad pun, but leaked this information? To let people know that we are wasting over $1 million a year because of this, and then if your house is non-compliant, sooner or later, we're going to find you in a nice sort of way. I read the First Selectman thing every day, every week and stuff, but I don't know if I've been aware of this until the
I haven't
committee.
seen that either in there, but I do get the annual notices that they send around with our sewer bills, but it doesn't
Yeah.
really make a prominent point of the fact that they're illicit discharges, or if they do, it's like I read it and put it in the recycling, so.
Maybe, John, one week can just have one paragraph saying, do you realize we're wasting over $1 million because, and just clarify it, so maybe some people will be aware and do it on their own.
Right.
Yeah, it could be.
yeah.
I think that there was, again, I'm going to preface with this, this is not my role to talk about PR. But I do, and I said to at the public hearing for the Sewer Commission, beyond the vague questions about finding authority, I said to the Sewer Commission, a big reason why I think you need to go to the RTM on this is there's just simply not a lot of public awareness about this. And I think there needs to be a push and a drive for it because people need to understand. When I speak to a few residents about this, just to see, nobody knows about it. And when I tell them that this is raising your sewer bill each year, people then start to be like, oh, really? That's okay. All right, so this is an issue. That's, oh my God, that much money, that's how much we're overpaying.
Yeah.
So I think there does need to be sort of a
Right.
PR push
Well,
here with all
if you
that.
can't get the soccer field because we don't have $1 million, maybe just because that's where you find it, but I don't think anybody's aware of it.
Right.
What percentage of the town is on sewer?
Sue Cameron said this last time.
It's not even that high, I don't think.
Susan Cameron
Not
gave us
that high.
these numbers.
50%, so like, it doesn't affect that. It doesn't affect that.
There's a lot of northern Darien up by the Merritt is not on sewer, that's all septic up there. Right. So I don't know.
No,
No,
Right.
they're not getting it. but-
except you're paying for it in your taxes.
Right.
Well, then
Whatever.
there's the pressure, isn't it? It's
Right.
really from those of us who,
Separate, it's the sewer bill. It's in the sewer bill.
it's in the
Right.
sewer bill, right?
It's a closed system, so it's just
So
people who are
they're-
connected.
They're being assessed for,
Yes,
oh,
uses the sewer is getting.
oh, so you're right, so it doesn't bother you at all.
Right. These notices would go out to people who are connected to this
Numbers.
sanitary sewer system, so it wouldn't just be going to everybody.
So they don't have the numbers that Susan had the numbers for how many households are there in Darien?
About 14,000, I think.
No, I think
No.
less, I think it's like
No, it's like
seven or 8,000.
It's
7,000 or 8,000,
5, 6,
okay,
7,000,
right,
okay.
and this is, sewer, people on the sewer, I think we're about a third.
So we're talking
So
about
it's a couple $2,500
$2,500
a person per
2,500
year,
people.
or per sewer user per year for this excess drainage or water that's going out.
Yeah, I get those bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember exactly when it was like skyrocketing, and they're saying, your sewer bill is too high.
Right.
Well, I didn't do anything.
How much is the sewer bill typical? I don't know.
I don't know what the typical, they base it on how much water you use every year. They base it on 2 quarters worth of water usage that they get from Aquarion, because they figure what the water that's coming in
Has to go
reflects
out.
the water that's going out, but that's why the sump pump issue is a problem, because
Or if
that's
the
not
neighbor has
measured by
just dumped all
Aquarion.
that- Yeah,
Got
so,
it.
So,
but, no, I think, my house, I think that our sewer bill is about $1,000 a year.
wow.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know why. And I don't know why, because we don't have a sump pump at all. We don't have a sump pump
Yeah.
feeding anything that shouldn't into
And how does
Into
it show
sewer.
up? As a separate bill or as part of
Yeah,
the?
Yeah,
it's,
oh, yeah.
separately
Mhm.
billed, every
Car taxes, sewer tax. yeah,
October,
yeah.
and then if it's over $500 a year, you get a second bill
Oh, not bad.
in the 6-month mark. So you have to pay $500 up front, and then the rest of the bill later in the year.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it possible for people to, forget it, I was thinking of something.
Is the idea of fairness or like an appeal process, is that, I didn't notice, is that in there?
Yes.
That's in the
Yes.
And
regulations.
does the appeal go to only to the sewage commission, or can a person, if it can't be resolved, is there some language that indicates it can go to committee of the RTM or?
Great question. So this process is governed by state law. So this is the same with the sewer commission, the blight commission. The way it works, and it's called administrative appeal. The way it works is you have an administrative official who makes a decision. In this case, the superintendent of sewer services would say, you have an illicit discharge, we're going to fine you. Resident says, no, that's wrong, I'm going to appeal to the sewer commission, and that's inside of the regulations. Sewer commission then gets to review. Sewer commission makes a decision, if they're going to uphold the superintendent's decision or not. If they do and the resident still doesn't like it, they go to Superior Court, and the Superior Court reviews the sewer commission's decision.
So that the RTM has nothing to do with
No,
that?
no.
Yeah, so they can appeal to, to a judge.
court,
A
Yeah, to
judge.
judicial
Yeah,
body, yeah.
Yeah, so,
That's standard.
So they get due process, in other words.
but
So, yeah.
if they're getting, if there are numerous things, I'm sure that it would end up, back with us. The RTM would have to consider
If we
that a
got
lot
too
of
many
people,
complaints.
a lot of people have been impacted,
Got it.
Well, that's the
um,
point of the limitation that I inserted
Yeah.
into the ordinance, so that people can come to us, because, they may not know about the sewer commission, but they do know about us, and and the sewer commission is using our finding authority in our name. We're delegating that authority to them, so if we think they're misusing it, or the town people do, and we agree with them, then we can take it back.
well,
You know?
but we can't undo.
We can't undo what they've done, that's
We can't undo
true.
what has been done, and the water's been unleashed, the Kraken is
Yeah.
released onto all the downhill, if it is a downhill thing, or whoever it affects, and then whose problem is it? I mean, are
Or
we
this
sharing
pumping
in that
station,
problem?
The idea, then if you have more water coming in,
Mm-hmm.
if you have to create a pumping station that you mentioned, the cost for that goes into the budget of the sewage commission, or sewage department, right?
Or
Well, but then
the
also,
town.
so that downhill, so there's a neighbor or two that literally absorbs the water of, someone that we have required to release to them. Then what? I mean, so let's say that we have required them and we've decided to help them. We've given them financial assistance, which may be inappropriate, in the extreme, considering, what property we might be talking about. Where are they supposed to put their water? There's not a stream nearby, or the first ones would have done that. There's not a stream, there's not a, then what? It just, we're getting involved in
Still
something
getting
here,
back to
is the
But
problem,
You pass that to Matt.
a sewer,
Well, like, ultimately, when the water reaches its final destination, it's going to be in wetlands or a stream or something, right?
yes.
It might go into the basement of the house next door, and then the sump pump's going to pump into the basement of the house next door to that, until you're sitting in the lowest lying area.
But each of those people have had to spend that money
No,
or
because-
suffer damage before they realize
Well,
that it's
they have a
even,
sump pump that,
But I
Does it
think
shut
we're
off?
missing, and I'm not missing the point, but I mean, we're projecting a future problem and discounting the current problem that we have. So we know we have a current problem that needs to be addressed, and this ordinance is really proposed or aimed at getting information more than fining. So, I mean, why don't we see if we can solve the current problem, and we'll address the future problem when it happens. I mean, I think that's kind of the calculus you have to do here, because otherwise we'll always let the
Except that
fears
we
of the
know
future.
but we know
You know
water's
your
going to run
current problem.
downhill. I mean, that we're in the places where there's
That's true,
gravity
that's
at
true.
work.
I mean,
We
I'm
know
a
it's going
victim
to
of it too.
happen.
I get it. I get
No,
it.
we know it's going to happen. That's why,
And you know your current problem, and you can
Yeah.
measure it based on some economics.
Right.
And that's why, it's just like, to me, there's an A and a B. A is to deal with it this way and let them have their crack at it. B is to slow roll it. And by by certificate of occupancy in your, for all the building, for all the new construction, whether it's renovation or new buildings, whatever, over time, solve it that way.
How fast do you think they can roll this out? Like, it seems to me, well, first of all, I really believe it's a marketing issue, but beyond the marketing issue, spring would be the time that you're going to see the most violations. So if they roll it out in the middle of July and August, it's not, no one's going to have water in their basement, but I bet if they were able to get their act together to have something out in April and May, you might, have a little bit more of a quick response and some compliance. It's just like when, I've had a house where, you had to get your septic inspected. I was on Cape Cod, but, if you do it in the spring, they tell you have to get a new rebuild the whole thing. If you do it in August, you have no problem at all. But I have a feeling this is sort of like that. I mean, I said years ago on Edgerton Street, and then also down by the Post Road. And, they're built on a pond. I mean, there's water there. I mean, you can definitely go house by house there.
With nowhere to go, because it's in a bit of a bowl.
Salt
right?
Box Lane, and all Beach Drive, all of those roads are just, they're underwater basically. So
I know that they are very anxious to get these statements out in April, specifically for that reason, because that's really when this starts becoming an issue.
Well, I think we've talked about this issue a lot. Are we
All right.
ready to vote on
Okay.
the advisability of whether we want to recommend that the RTM approve a sump pump ordinance in the first place? So can I have a resolution, or whether whether the TGS&A Committee agrees that the RTM should adopt a sump pump resolution?
Which basically is just saying that we want people to just acknowledge that they're in violation, or disclose. It's just a disclosure.
Yeah. I mean, just the general concept.
Right.
So the resolution is, do we agree with the general concept of the sump pump resolution as proposed to the RTM? Can I have, somebody want to make that resolution or that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Joe. All right, and a second?
Second.
Okay. And any other discussion? Okay, may I have a vote? Who's in favor of approving the RTM, approving a sump pump ordinance? So,
Any sump up?
I mean, as
Yeah.
proposed.
The one.
Okay, so, all right,
Because
so
it still
we're,
has to go to other committees and
Yeah.
get discussed, and then.
We had fun talking about it anyway.
and we have to, and we should, and we need to wordsmith, what's in front of
Needs
us.
some work.
So, but I mean, just the general concept of should we recommend to the
Public
RTM that
Works.
we're approving a sump up ordinance as proposed, as proposed
We'll
tonight,
get
so.
feedback.
All right, so,
I can tell these same questions are going to be asked.
By everyone.
Yeah,
Of
of course, of
fairness,
course.
like what happens if somebody bought a house and all of a sudden they discover it's like a huge problem, that now who's responsible for that? I mean, this
Well,
is
that's what I
gonna,
didn't understand why that couldn't be part of a closing.
Well, no, so I get the sensitivity to that. I think the no-brainer is new builds or COs.
Yeah.
If you're doing a renovation or.
Solve
Right.
it eventually.
but
that's
clearly
like
they
50
need it
year
or want
solution,
it.
not
and-
a this year's
I mean, at the rate I'm seeing
Well, but-
rebuilds in town, it's not a 50-year
Yeah,
solution
yeah,
anymore.
the
Every time a house
turnover
turns
is
over, it's new
about-
construction.
I think it might be 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
25.
All right, so let's take a look at the resolution and the motion. I didn't have any suggestions to the resolution itself. I thought that was fine. I mean, Bobby has adopted or added the March 3 date for the adoption of the sump pump regulations.
We should be looking at the last ones we sent.
The ones I sent the other night,
Yeah.
or last night, or,
Most recent.
yeah, yeah.
You said you sent red lines, they don't show up as red lines.
No,
Oh, well, they're on the printed page I gave to you.
like here,
That's the
They should have, I don't know why they
This
didn't,
one.
but,
do you have this one?
yeah, well, I mean, you've got.
He was just handing them out, and you got it, okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, I just printed out a couple before it came. No, I don't need it. I have it on my computer here. So I don't have any changes to the resolution. I thought that was fine, unless anyone else does. All right, so let's move to the ordinance itself. The first line, and this is a new change that I've actually found tonight, in the delegation of enforcement authority. The first sentence says, "The Sewer Commission is hereby authorized and instructed to adopt regulations concerning sump pump discharges." I'm not sure I'm so comfortable with the "and instructed." basically on the language that we've, discussed tonight, or some of the comments we've heard tonight, I'm happy to say the Sewer Commission is authorized to adopt regulations concerning sump pump discharges, but is the RTM really instructing them to do so?
I think it's this one up here.
I agree.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we go as soft as possible.
So are we happy to delete the words "and instructed"?
Are you?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay,
Strike
I
away.
hadn't talked to you about that, Bob.
No, please,
I just saw that in the last half hour.
Strike it.
Okay, so we're all fine with that change? Anyone else have anything up to, before we get to the limitation of delegated enforcement authority? All right, so we get up to the limitation of delegated enforcement authority, which is the new provision I inserted. The Sewer Commission's looked at it. They're willing to accept it, let's put it that way. But one of their suggestions that Bobby raised with me last night is we have the provision here that no regulation will take effect until the Sewer Commission has provided written notice to the RTM Rules Committee, no fewer than, I had inserted 90 days. I think Bobby suggests that 60 days might be more appropriate. So I don't have a problem with that unless anyone else does. So we have 60 days notice, the Rules Committee does, and they can, if they think it's important, they can bring it to the RTM's attention. And in any event, we're going to add language that says that the RTM can act at any time, regardless of when the regulation becomes enforceable. So
I have a question
Yep.
about that. What constitutes noticing the Rules Committee? Is that at their meeting, then the 60-day clock begins? Or is that just whenever the chairman gets a
Great question.
person?
Great question.
Well, because there are only so many meetings, and if you hit it here and not, there might not be time to,
Yes,
Deal.
very fair. And I believe the language in there says upon 60 days written notice, or 90, we'll say 60 days written notice.
Written notice.
yeah, written notice.
written notice.
yeah,
But
yeah.
written notice, does that mean that that all the members of the committee are privy to that written notice?
I'm trying to think about, in practice, what would typically happen is you would send it to the chair of that committee, and then the chair of the committee would,
Their responsibility, but
Yeah.
your consequence. If somebody says, I just got this, and, it's only been 40 days, and we have one meeting, and how are we supposed to, that's all.
But the
Yes.
RTM doesn't have to act within the 60 days. That's the point. Is that the regulation will become effective within 60 days.
No,
of
it's about
giving RTM
it's about the
notice.
committee people being able to do their due
Mm-hmm.
diligence. Which is kind of maybe why the 90 is not a bad idea.
I think with the 90 days, it's more just because, say you have, we're getting, a little tangential, but if you're dealing with things like the wet season, spring is coming up and you need some sort of change for some reason, 90 days can be a little far out, so to say, and then what happens if it gets up for consideration? The RTM wants to review it through committee, now all of a sudden you could be, much more than just 90 days out. You missed the entire
Yeah.
summer season, so to say. So I think it's just about keeping it moving along.
Got it.
Well, the regulation will become effective after 90 days,
Yes.
whether RTM acts or not. So even if the RTM's considering whether they like it or don't like it and want to tweak it or do something to it, the reg's going to become effective, and then the RTM will act at some subsequent time. So
Fair point.
it's not going to stop the effectiveness of the regulation.
Fair point. Yes, I think it'll gum things up, certainly, while if we know that the Sewer Commission knows the RTM is planning to take a review and take action.
That's probably-
But you're right, the legality of it, under the language there, it would still legally go into effect within,
Right.
yeah.
So 60 days, 90 days?
Why did you change it to 60?
At Bobby's suggestion.
So
I just
Sewer
chose
Commission's-
90 arbitrarily. I mean, I just picked it out of a hat. It just seemed like a reasonable period of time, but,
Bobby, why did you switch it to 60?
This is from the Sewer Commission. They were, they said 60 days might be more manageable, just to keep things moving along, so it doesn't take forever to new things get in, but they weren't adamant. That was just a suggestion they had.
What would be an example of this, just in reality, of where it could be?
So the Sewer Commission has adopted a regulation that we're acknowledging in this resolution. So we have notice of it, it's going to become effective, and, if it becomes a problem, in the future, then we can deal with it. But if the Sewer Commission decides to amend that ordinance or that regulation in any way, then they have to give the RTM Rules Committee notice, and if the Rules Committee thinks it's a problem, they'll refer to TGS&A or whatever the relevant committees are, and we can, review it and decide what to do with it.
Which means they can actually effectively still do what they wanted, and they have less time then, or what does that actually mean?
It means that the regulation they enact or adopt will be effective within 60 days, whether the RTM acts or not. But the RTM's put on notice of it, that we know this is happening, and it gives us the opportunity to act. And
But
if
there's
it
no
takes us
time limit
longer
on
than
our
60
acting?
days, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do it in our own good time.
Right.
So it doesn't rush us, as we have found in this particular issue,
Be-
with 5 committees dealing with it.
Right.
when-
See,
So if
because
it
most
becomes
of
an
the
issue,
time-
you deal with it, and if it's not
Yeah.
as pressing, then
Right.
can
Okay.
wait.
But we're at least put on
All right,
notice of
okay.
of changes to the regulations, because otherwise people don't really pay attention to sewer commission regulations. So I thought it'd be a good idea to at least put the Rules Committee on notice that, hey, there's a change to this, and, to a delegation of the finding authority that the RTM has given to the sewer commission, so you ought to know about it. And if you think it's a problem on its face, then you can act on it. But in most circumstances, you're going to look at a regulation and it's going to look okay, because these things are kind of bland in the written word. It's the practice, the implementation of it can sometimes be problematic. And that's going to take some time. So that's why I added the provision that however the RTM can act under this provision at any time, after the effective date of the ordinance.
So they just want to deal with seasonal issues, which is more of a 60-day thing. They'd have it 30 if they could, because, they're trying to be in real time with fixing a problem.
And I don't
Yes.
want to limit
Fine.
I don't want to limit the
I just
authority.
don't want us to be limited, because it's
Right.
too problematic for meeting notices and handing it around and, so,
I mean, that was my thought, is I didn't want to hamstring the sewer commission to do what they need to do.
yeah.
But I wanted to reserve the RTM's right to review what they're doing in our name with our delegated authority. And if we don't like it, we can do something about it. But it'll probably be a result of more the implementation than the actual wording of the regulation. So,
Did your blue sentence there replace that last red sentence that's crossed out? I'm trying to understand.
What's the difference between the red and the
Change the order?
the red is new, so, yes, the blue sentence at the bottom, nonetheless, the RTM may review, amend, or repeal at any time.
Kind of says the same thing. as-
Yeah,
Okay.
it was just a kind of tweaking the language and moving things around. So, and then the sewer commission asked that we add the next blue sentence, nothing herein shall otherwise limit, infringe upon the authority granted to the sewer commission under state statutes, which we couldn't do even if we wanted to. So, that was like giving away snow in the winter.
That's just making sure we know.
Right. So, any thoughts on the limitation of on delegated enforcement authority provision? Any other changes or recommendations? Okay. So the next provision we have is violation of the penalties. I didn't have any changes to that, unless anyone else does.
You had originally deleted Firmer Corporation,
Yeah.
and did you
Oh.
change your mind?
Oh, no,
Oh, no,
I missed
okay.
that. Thank you so much. We should delete firm or corporation.
Or was that somewhere else as well?
It was at the top, where it says no person shall discharge at the very
Right,
beginning.
No person, right.
Right, and I just missed the second reference to it down there. The word person is defined in the ordinances as corporations, any legal entity, so we don't need, firm or corporation is just surplusage. So, yeah, that's a good catch. So let's delete that, and just say any person who fails to comply. All right, anything else? Hearing none? Okay. Any other comments on the language of the regulation before we vote,
How does this, like,
or the ordinance?
does it say every violation, like how, is this something that, like,
Determines.
if they don't disclose every year, they get an additional?
Yeah, it
Yes.
seems vague still. I mean, like,
Yeah,
Well,
so,
that's in the regs. But go ahead, Bob.
if you get a second statement and you don't return the second statement, that is a new violation.
so are you, then, is it standard though that you will be sent, like, is there a protocol? So you send out the first regulation, okay, people don't respond. Are you gonna do that 2-3 times a year, or is it to commission's discretion, or?
Great question. So the way that the regulations are structured is that they can send them out to all sewer users annually. I believe it's the superintendent's discretion to send them out annually. And then they can send them out on a 90-day basis to any user that they have reason to believe is potentially has an illicit discharge. So the bad actors, so to say, they could be
Targeted.
every 90 days. Another statement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll note that the Sewer Commission adopted many of the proposed changes that we discussed at our last meeting to the regulation. So, a lot of the kind of safeguards for residents that we discussed and that I had edited the reg and submitted to everybody, it's been, reviewed by the Sewer Commission, and they adopted a large majority of them.
Is there any way for the sewer commission to know who's doing this by looking at the house, from outside, or at the sewer?
I'm sure to some extent, if you're on the bottom of a hill and high, floodplain, you probably can say that's high likelihood, but whether or not, just because that person has the characteristics of a home that likely floods doesn't necessarily mean they know.
I meant, like, can you see a hose going into the sewer or something?
Within the home, you could. I know that they have dye testing, and like they can, as Darren from DPW explained to me, they can basically drop a line in and they can tell by the way that the dye changes colors if it's clean water coming out, so that's one way they can do it.
That's from inside the home, right?
I believe you can do that. I wouldn't quote me on this, but I believe you can do that from outside. Yes. But then you have to basically go into the ground, get to the line, test it from there.
Not aware.
Probably not cost effective to do it to everyone.
And there's no internal pipe monitoring of the flow through certain areas of town or streets where, if you knew the average outflow of a house on, was one thing that somebody was way up. Like the gas, my gas company gives me an evaluation every month showing me how I'm doing relative to my neighbors. I know it's a different thing, but.
If there were such a device, I'm willing to bet DPW would be doing that instead of coming here for regulations.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other comments on the proposed resolution or ordinance before we vote? All right, so may I have a resolution to approve the resolution to the RTM, approving the adoption of an ordinance for the abatement of illicit sewer pump discharges into public sewers, and the proposed ordinance as amended this evening? Anyone like to make? All right, Joe? And a second, please?
Second.
Linda? And any other discussion before we vote? Going once, going?
We did agree on the 60 versus the 90.
Yes, right?
Okay.
Everyone's good on that?
Everyone's-
Okay. All right, so all in favor of the motion? Say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, unanimous, thank you. All right, so we'll have our first report for the RTM at the March 16th meeting.
And
Yeah.
you will be at
Thank you, Bobby.
It'll be a full house, I'm sure.
Sorry to keep you here tonight, Bobby, but it's very helpful having you here, so we appreciate it.
And
Will you be at the RTM meeting as well?
yes, we will also, Public Works and Sewer Commission people,
Right.
because we should make a special request of that. Having just forwarded this to the RTM, I think we need to ask that they be present.
It would be in their best interest if they want to see this adopted. Yeah.
I'll relay the message, I'm certain.
Okay.
I wonder if there's a way to just make, here are some common questions that, probably based on this video alone, but just to kind of synthesize it for people so that they can kind of understand, okay, these are already questions, otherwise you're going to get the same
No,
questions.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's
We've
yeah,
already
they're just.
thought of these questions.
Yeah.
We've gone
Yeah.
beyond that.
And not only have we thought of them, but they've come up even in our committee multiple times.
And how
Same
you
one.
answered them, and
So-
that it is a work in progress, and this is why.
And this is
you know,
why
you're
ultimately.
dealing with it.
Yeah.
Seems like that would be a helpful
Yeah,
thing to do.
yeah.
Can't say I can tell you we're going to, not my
Right.
we're going to do that, but I agree that's a good concept.
You're just the messenger, we get it, yes. All right.
Got it.
Great, well, thank you, Bobby. We don't want to keep you any longer,
Thank you.
so
Thanks.
appreciate you staying this evening. All right, next up on the agenda is to, we have review and approve not review, but discuss the Sewer Commission's proposed regulation that I circulated to, which adopted most of the changes we discussed at the last meeting. Does anyone have any comments on that? Okay. All right. No comment, just making notes for the minutes. And then the next item of business is to discuss the first selectman's request that the RTM review the Darien Charter and Code of Ordinances for potential amendments or changes, and TGS&A's role in that. As far as I know, none of the districts have met or called district caucuses to do this, because I think that was what rules kind of envisioned, that, the districts would be meeting to discuss the first selectman's request that we review the charter and the code of ordinances. Has anyone heard from their district chairs about having a caucus? No?
No.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, if anyone has any things they'd like to propose or talk about tonight on that score, I'm happy to, open the floor and
I would
entertain.
I'd like to ask about the consequence of doing a charter review. I'd like to ask that question of the veteran on this committee, Mr. Maselli. What can you tell us about the last charter review that you were?
Charter revision?
Your charter revision, yes, please. How does it work, and why, and what the ultimate consequence of, no matter what you do to change your charter, it does then limit you, I understand, it limits you from what?
Okay.
Ever doing it again? What?
There are RTMs set up all over the state at one time. And once you go to a charter revision commission, and it's successful, then those RTMs no longer could change the charter on their own. Every charter change that they want to make has to go back to the public. There's only, at that time, there were only 3 towns that were left that could change their charters. The RTMs could change the charters themselves. And Darien was one of them. So we'd be losing that.
So what we can do now is we can change what about the charter? Anything
We can
at all?
change
Can we
anything.
change it piecemeal?
We could change anything.
Okay, we can change it piecemeal to make any corrections that we see that need to be. But but a charter revision
It's
is a
different.
very
It's a
specific and
commission-
very
it's a commission
long,
set up by the Board of
incredibly
Selectmen.
involved process that actually ends up in a townwide referendum at the end of it.
Right.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, the last time it occurred was in 2008. I think there's not unanimity in the opinion that Joe just expressed, that the Charter Revision Commission revokes the RTM's right to review and approve the charter revision, but that was an issue that was raised in 2008, and one of the reasons it was defeated. The Charter Revision Commission, because I was on the Board of Selectmen at the time, met extensively and proposed a wide range of changes to our charter, many of which were then taken up by the RTM after it was defeated, and most of the low-hanging fruit has already been addressed. But I think the first selectman, my understanding is not proposing that we go down that route, that the RTM take up the, mantle of charter revision on its own, which we have the right to do currently. So, the question really is whether, there are things in the charter or the town code of ordinances that we think needs to be amended, or it's something that cries out for, for revision or work.
Is there a reason that First Selectman requested us to, is he thinking of some sort of revision once done?
I've heard indirectly that he wants to kind of reconfigure some of the boards and commissions, especially the land use boards, because we have multiple ones. We have EPC, we have Planning, Zoning, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's the Board of Assessment Appeals. There are multiple land use boards, and some of their, authority overlaps, and some things actually, the EPC is also the, what do they call it, the environment, they're the Flood Erosion and Control Board as well. But they haven't really had the opportunity to do a lot of that work because they're so, dealing with so many applications. So the thought is, should that responsibility be taken away from them and given to someone else? Should we create a different kind of environmental commission on that? But, that's probably something more that should come from EPC or the people involved in that.
So the question
I
is,
think-
I guess, is it possible to deal with a specific issue like that without addressing an entire charter revision, without pursuing a whole charter revision, does it require charter revision to make that change?
Yes, that would, because the EPC is a creature of the charter.
It's baked in.
So
Okay.
that's, I mean, yeah, so if something's in the charter and it needs to be changed, then that has to be charter revision, but it's not, we do charter changes not all the time, but every few years the RTM has addressed something in the charter. So
But-
it's
And
not.
going through that very involved process that ultimately ends up in a.
No, just through TGS&A
Okay, all right.
and the RTM doing it itself. We have to hold a public
Okay.
hearing on any charter change that we want to do, I believe. But, it's basically just another RTM resolution that we pass.
Kevin, is it, that you remember when we changed the words of the per, and per, was that a revision?
Yeah, I don't remember if we did that in the charter or the code. It may have been in the charter too, but we've made changes to the charter in the past. But no, you don't, we don't need to create a commission and give us advice. We're going to, TGS&A is actually going to be the clearinghouse for all that when it actually comes through.
So we should ask everyone what they think needs to be changed, and then we'll see if it requires a formal revision, or can we address those changes. And
We are the formal revision.
Yeah, we could change anything.
Right. I mean, TGS&A, the RTM
Until we
can.
have a charter revision,
well,
appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
right,
That,
yeah.
But
And I-
that's a
yeah.
whole separate body and a different process than the process we're engaged in now.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to know,
Yeah.
because reading through the process of charter revision, it's quite something. Yeah.
But
And
I think the
seems
first selectman's
Probably
concern
unnecessary.
is that, our system of government in this town is very Byzantine. And by that I mean that, it's so easy for people to say, when a townsperson comes to a board or commission member and says, oh, I've got a problem with this, I've got a problem with that, can you fix it? And they can say, well, I could, but it's really their problem. And they point to two other boards or commissions. And that's very frustrating for people because, town government, it works very differently than state government or the federal government does because there's really no one centralized control. We have a first selectman who, acts and talks and walks like a mayor, but he's not really a mayor. He's just one member of a 5-member body that's just an executive and policy-making body, but, it can't do anything without the concurrence of the Board of Finance and the RTM, and, it can't enforce anything over the schools because that's the Board of Ed's prerogative. It can't do much on zoning, planning and zoning because that's their, or land use because that's planning and zoning's prerogative. So it's so easy to pass the buck. And I think there's some yearning in town that maybe we could centralize things or make things more understandable for townspeople and make our government more efficient. I'm not sure how we do that, though, with the boards and commissions structured the way they do, unless we start eliminating them or consolidating power in that. And I'm not sure that's, how that would work or how it's going to fly, and I don't really have the time to dedicate to try and restructure Darien's town government.
And it's not that bad.
No, I mean, if it's not broke, why are we fixing it? So, but let's see what others think in our caucuses and what boards and commissions, if they think that something needs to be tweaked in their powers or changed. If EPC doesn't want to be the Flood Erosion and Control Board or thinks it should be spun off to another board, okay, I'd consider that. That might be a good idea. Because we know this town, as we've just discussed for the last hour, has a lot of issues with flooding and erosion control and, with all the issues about sump pump water getting thrown out in the streets. So maybe it would be good to have a separate board or commission looking at that.
Yeah, as long as we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the way the RTM Rules Committee envisioned this is that the district chairs would be holding caucuses of all their members and getting them together and trying to solicit interest from them. And us on TGS&A being in the various districts, we'd be at each of those meetings so we could kind of take notes and maybe give guidance on how this whole process works.
So why don't we, what have we done to solicit their thoughts, ideas,
Well, Rules
have
was
we-
supposed to talk to the district chairs about doing that. I
So
don't think they
maybe
have.
maybe we need to do something, like, reach out to like the chairs, but they can talk to they can, meant to be for everyone to, put their thinking
Yeah.
caps on and figure out what it is that they think doesn't work.
Right, because so far I have not heard anything
And
from
that
anybody
can't
on
be,
this issue.
that's not- if everybody thinks everything's perfect, I don't believe it.
Because they're afraid to
change anything.
The can of worms,
Right.
yes, yes.
Right, so,
Cans of worms are a treasure.
so, okay.
But maybe should we do that? Should we come up with a reach out, some kind of communication to other committees? Or should that come from the Rules Committee?
That's a perfect
Yeah,
example.
Yeah, I don't know that it really should come from TGS&A. I think
Oh, okay.
probably rules would be because they're the executive body of the RTM. So we can't tell the district chairs what to do, but rules can.
Well, then,
So, and rules is meeting on Monday, so I'll communicate our thoughts to them.
You're on that, right?
No, I'm not,
You're
but,
not, Oh, you are?
okay. So Joe will be there, and I may should, well, we'll see. I may
Is
or
the
may not
charter
show.
online?
Yes. Oh, the town code and charter is online. If you go
Oh,
to
it's
the
the town code, okay.
Yeah, if you go to the Town of Darien website,
It's on.
yeah.
But I don't think many RTM members have.
Yeah.
I mean,
so we need to tell them, it's time to read the town charter. I mean, people will have homework assignments, right?
Right.
And then,
what's the difference of town code and town charter?
So the charter is like the town constitution, all right? So that's very hard to amend, and, although we can do it through the RTM, but it's basically the supreme ruling document, and the code are basically the code of ordinances are implementations of the powers that, provided by the charter to various boards, commissions, and the RTM. And only the RTM has the ability to create ordinances or enact ordinances. So, it's basically the difference between the United States Constitution and then statutes.
Which is what we did today. We just
Right, this was an ordinance, yeah. And then regulations are one step below that. Regulations just implement the ordinance. All right, so ask rules, what's going on with charter revision?
Many chapters.
How many chapters?
I said many
and
chapters.
then it's-
Oh, yeah. But the charter is the charter isn't
78,
very,
yeah.
it's not very long. It may have 78 paragraphs, but they're all just a couple of sentences or whatever, sections, whatever you want to call them.
Articles.
Do you have the page numbers there? The number of pages?
No, it's just like,
That's exactly what's wrong with the charter. You guys can't even figure out.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
where to begin?
I was very involved with the charter revision experiment back in 2008, so I read it and got to know it pretty well. It's not a very complicated document. It probably could use some tweaking, but again, if it's not broke, why fix it?
Can we also then
add eye
ask,
to it.
who
So that-
should
so
reach
town
out
people
to
can actually understand it.
Krista,
See,
to
so a normal
the
person can understand it.
appointees of,
And
running
AI
the
chatbot.
commissions? Who should, like, why would you do that? Why would you ask these people? Back to the can of worms? No, but I think that there are people who work in this. I mean, we show up for meetings, and there are people who work with this government as is, every day of the week. And I'll bet they have some ideas
Yeah.
that we should hear.
That would be part of the process.
Uh-huh.
Well, the first selectman has solicited ideas or asked for ideas to be submitted to him from all different constituencies in the town.
So he can
So
gather.
he's collecting them, but they're going to have to come through us eventually.
All right.
Sorry, can you just clarify, I still don't understand how we are, potentially revise the charter and giving up the power to
Well, that's through Charter Revision Commission. There are two paths to amending the charter. One is through the RTM, and we do that through a regular vote, regular procedure like we do now. We consider a proposed revision, then report to the RTM, and the RTM will vote to adopt or not adopt it. The other way is a Charter Revision Commission, which is a special body appointed by the Board of Selectmen to kind of review the charter en masse and propose like a large set of revisions, like a constitutional convention is. That's why, if you know anything about the United States Constitution and how it's amended, there are two ways to do that too. The Congress can do it by proposing an amendment and passing it by a supermajority, and then it has to go to the states through a supermajority. Or you can call a constitutional convention and have, people from all over the country gather like they did in Philadelphia back in 1789 and propose amendments to the Constitution. Now, the problem with that and why it's never happened since 1789 is everyone's afraid what a constitutional convention would do. There'd be no limitations on what they could amend or what they could propose. So, rather than create a whole new can of worms, it's better to do it piece by piece, propose amendment by amendment, which is basically what the RTM does. We do what Congress does with respect to amending the town's charter. We'll take a little piece of it, we'll make a change, and then, the RTM will either approve or not approve it. But, we rarely propose a massive change to the RTM, to the charter, through the RTM, which is what the first selectman is now proposing. So even if the first selectman comes with a long laundry list of proposed changes to the charter, yeah, my proposal is we take it one piece at a time. We, try to look at it holistically to see how changes may affect other parts of the charter, but, if we try to give the RTM a list as long as my arm of changes to the charter in one fell swoop, it's likely going to fail because, people object to one thing and they'll say, let's throw everything out. So it's usually better to do it, let's look at the provision for how the RTM is configured, how it acts, or how the Board of Selectmen works, or the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yeah. So, but, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We don't have that list yet. We don't know what the first selectman's thinking. And he's just solicited, or asked for ideas from the rest of the town. So we'll get his list, I think, by the end of the year. We're supposed to report to the RTM in June, at its June meeting, about where, the ideas are going with respect to charter revision. At least that's what Rules has asked us to do. But, at this point, our report's going to be very short. Because nobody's proposed anything. So,
Which is just fine.
yeah, well,
And
Always have to do it.
all those changes come through us.
yeah, yeah.
Everything goes through TGS&A.
But in the meantime, we definitely should get to read all the way through the town charter.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, if it takes you an hour, it's probably,
Yeah.
it's an hour well spent. It's probably more than it's actually going to take you to get through it.
It's not that
So,
long. Yeah.
all right, anything else on proposed charter revision at this point? All right, any new business that anyone would like to propose or discuss? Okay, well, may I have a motion to adjourn? And motion seconded by Peter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.